Hi everyone, welcome back to Storytime Recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the film from 2021, Girl in the Basement. Without any further, let's get started. The story opens with Marie having difficulty breathing, so the main character Sarah and her father Don bring her to the hospital. By the time they get to the hospital, Don is urged to drive more quickly by Sarah, who becomes terrified when Marie stops breathing. Sarah is expressly told by Don to keep quiet in the hospital. In an attempt to save Marie's life, the paramedics race to her aid. However, all they see on the monitor is a flat cardiac line. The plot shifts to a moment from 20 years ago, when Sarah and her sister Amy are having dinner with their parents Don and Irene. The atmosphere at the meal changes as Sarah's father shows his domineering side by forbidding her from attending a party and by demonstrating his reign above the family. That evening, Sarah goes out with her lover Chris. When her parents find her room empty, her father calls her a problem. At the party, Sarah enjoys herself while dancing with Chris, who then sings her a song he made particularly for her. They kiss and declare their love for one another. Sarah returns home in the morning. Dawn has been waiting for her all night, and after their argument, she declares that she will permanently leave the family the moment she turns 18. When Sarah talks to her mother and sister about her ambitions to work and tour the country while supporting herself, her father overhears them and walks to the basement, where he discloses there is a secret room hidden behind a bookshelf. After 3 months following her graduation, Sarah learns from her mother that her father has been spending more time in the basement as a man cave. When Irene leaves the house, Don tricks Sarah into going down to the basement, where she helps him carry a box. Once inside, he takes her to a secret room that he claims is a bomb shelter built by the previous owner. He locks Sarah in the room while she screams in fear and calls for help, but no one can hear her because the shelter is soundproof. Concerned about her whereabouts, her mother phones the police on the 4th day. Her father pays her a visit and coldly explains the conditions of her confinement, telling her that she would have to work for everything she gets, including clean, vented air, before he departs. Don is mistreating Sarah. When a police officer shows up at the family, they are informed that Sarah has probably left for her extended trip across the nation. Sarah's mother worries that her daughter will never leave the house without saying goodbye, especially before turning 18. As the days pass, Sarah remembers her night spent with Chris. Chris arrives at the residence. Don tricks him by pretending to be telling him that Sarah ran away with her childhood neighbor Steve after graduation. On the 21st day of her captivity in the basement, Sarah celebrates her 18th birthday, and her father brings her a cake and a red nightgown as a gift. She asks for a clock, but he refuses to give it to her and threatens to beat her if she disobeys him. About a year after her discovery that she is pregnant, her water breaks on its own, and she gives birth to a girl called Marie. For years later, Sarah becomes pregnant once more. With his wife Irene and daughter Amy, Don leads a double life. In the basement, he lives with Sarah and her daughter Marie. Irene, who is still concerned about Sarah's location, wants to employ a private detective, but Don strongly refuses. As a reward for respect later on, Don brings Sarah and Marie a TV to the basement. One night, Sarah gives birth to a second child, a boy named Michael. Sarah transforms her horrific life narrative into a bedtime tale for her children that is full of evenings and princesses. Chris returns to the house and looks for Sarah, her sister. After understanding that Don had lied to Chris, Amy tells him the truth. They discuss how awful Don has always been to Sarah, and Amy fears that Don may have killed her. Using his temperament and past outbursts as justification, Sarah makes up stories for her kids to help them forget about the outside world. Meanwhile, Amy and Irene confront Don about his lies, and a terrible altercation breaks out. Irene cries that she would do all in her power to find her daughter. Angry after their argument, Don drops his keys on the sofa. Amy grabs the keys and heads to the basement to seek for clues. Don finds her, retrieves his keys, and gets into a confrontation with Amy. Amy is terrified and believes that Don is to fault for Sarah going missing. As time goes on, Sarah gives birth to another boy, whom she names Thomas. Thomas is a pleasant and content child, so Sarah persuades Don to take the third baby upstairs, arguing that the basement is too small to fit another child, and that she doesn't have the time to care for it. Irene finds the infant abandoned on the porch of the house. In a heartfelt note that appears to have been written by Sarah, she states that this is her baby and that she wants Irene to raise it. She also explains that she and her boyfriend lack the resources to care for the baby in the basket. There is another note from Sarah that begs for assistance, but sadly, Dawn finds it and abuses her once more. As the years pass in captivity, the kids' imaginative skills grow, extending their mother's bedtime story. By this point, Sarah has spent the last 14 years in the basement. Marie has developed into a stunning young woman who, one evening, tries on cosmetics. After Dawn expresses admiration for her appearance, Sarah asks him to leave her daughter alone since she does not want her to be abused. In exchange, Dawn turning off the electricity that regulates the clean air. While struggling to breathe, Marie worries that she will never make friends or colleagues. We learn from the exchange that Marie is unaware that Dawn is both her father and grandfather. Now when he is an adult, Thomas discovers his grandma sobbing in his mother's bedroom. Irene tells Thomas how much she loves her daughter and how amazing Sarah is. Raindrops begin to fall from the basement ceiling at the same moment that Sarah climbs up to find a wet roof. Using a spoon, she digs her way to the surface and flashes a distress signal. A neighbor witnesses this and reports it to Dawn without investigating further. Sarah, who is pregnant again, gets beaten by Dawn, and as a result, she loses her baby. She tears in pain. Dawn walks to the basement and Sarah cries when gives birth to a dead child, burying the child in the backyard, while simultaneously praising Thomas, who is now a gifted athlete. When Michael and Marie inquire as to when they will be brought into the outside world, Dawn accuses Sarah of being the reason they are trapped there, driven by her children's endless questions about their lives. In a fit of rage, Sarah yells and destroys all of their furniture, exhausted and falling to the ground while recalling her best moments with Chris. Her kids cover her with a blanket and tidy their house. They express regret to her deeply. Sarah tells them that since they are old enough to understand the truth about their life in captivity, they already know that Dawn lives upstairs with their Aunt Irene to assist in caring for Thomas. They are tired of the lies Sarah tells them about everything, beginning with the fact that their favorite bedtime story is based on her life. She explains, very softly, that Dawn is both their father and her father. Mary suffers a severe asthma attack the instant she learns the awful reality. When the kids start to feel like they have a problem, Sarah comforts them by saying that she loves them and that Dawn is the only one who is at fault. A year later, after Dawn makes fun of Sarah's attractiveness, there is another incident involving Dawn and Michael. Food for the basement is being limited because Dawn is having problems at work and will soon lose his job and face foreclosure. When Dawn attempts to suffocate the family in the basement by connecting the air vent and the exhaust fumes from the car, Thomas interrupts him in the garage and unintentionally saves their lives. As Dawn enjoys a lovely backyard cookout with his family, Marie is ill and having trouble breathing. Dawn refuses to take Marie to the hospital. Sarah pleads for his assistance and swears to keep quiet about everything. Dawn agrees. Sarah's left 20 years have passed since the captivity began, and the movie opens with Marie being taken to the hospital. Sarah is deeply relieved when the doctors are able to preserve Marie's life, because she is quite concerned about her. The nurse is informed when she requests further medical history. Marie is homeschooled and has only received natural medicines for her illnesses. Sarah appears exhausted and disoriented as she cautiously explores around the hospital for a way out. After splattering water on the medical documents, Sarah walks away from Dawn. Sarah confesses to the nurse that she needs help just before Dawn arrives. When a policeman approaches Dawn, they make an arrest. Sarah tells Marie that they are safe and free. The police swarm the house. When Michael is freed from the cellar, Irene and Thomas are horrified to see him gasping for oxygen. From the rear of the police car, Dawn observes everything. Later, on a lovely summer's day, Marie, Thomas, and Michael play in the country while Sarah, Irene, and Amy keep an eye on them from the porch of the house. Marie spots Chris coming from the driveway. He arrives on his motorcycle and goes for a walk with Sarah. Chris feels bad for not looking harder to find Sarah and for believing her father's ridiculous story. He gives her a gift, a pink motorcycle helmet he bought for her at the age of 18 when they were planning to embark on a journey. Finally happy together, they go on their long-awaited motorcycle ride. Thanks for watching, and remember to turn on your notifications to watch more movie recaps like this one.